Not this week, because this week instead we have
Something
Cutting the
else!
Cord!
We got something else. We're back. Oh, wait, that's really long. There we go.
Amazing.
Hey, whoa.
Oh,
Was that the
Oh!
Huh?
news? This just in.
That throws the thing.
Oh no! Although
So-
although we're talking about a great film that involves
Cutting
news
the
later on in
Cord-
the segment. Yes,
yes.
Mike.
I
I'm
was
trying to
gonna
make a segue.
I was going to explain it.
I want to impress Alex
All right, you
Albrecht.
wanna explain-
He's from Dignation.
Do you wanna
and
explain
totally
Cutting the
Where
Cord?
are the segues in this stupid
Do
show?
you want to explain? You got
No,
a lot
Mike.
of graphics, but no segue.
This is Mike's moment in the
No,
sun.
no, no. You explain Cutting the Cord. Can I also say happy birthday to my mom?
Oh, you can't follow that. How
I
do you
run the
follow
cameras.
that?
I can do whatever I want.
We're talking about horror films.
I know.
Well,
No,
come-
tell us what Cutting the Cord is.
Cutting the Cord is, I forget. No, I'm just kidding. So if you can watch movies instantly online on your, Roku, on your TiVo, on your Google TV, on your computer, you don't need cable anymore. They call it Cutting the Cord. So we recommend things you can watch. I know I use Netflix a lot, and I'm always like, I don't know what to watch tonight. This segment helps you decide, and we recommend some great movies you can watch.
Yes, bada bing.
So what's going to happen is
Yes.
we are each going to name 2 films
All right.
that you can stream instantly.
Oh, okay.
And when I say instantly, I mean after the show is over.
Although I say this like I didn't prep and have 2 movies. I was like, oh, yeah. That's
Oh,
awesome.
that's
Let's do it.
interesting.
I can
Somehow you guys have graphics for movies I just came up with.
imagine that.
Those TriCasters are amazing.
I can read my mind. So I will go first,
Please.
and then let's just say after that,
I would go.
you would go.
Okay.
And then if we were to follow this pattern,
You might go again.
I would go again.
Perfect.
And then to wrap it out,
Yes.
you would
I could go.
Yes.
Oh, boy. It writes itself.
Who needs Wade?
Is that all in the
Or Chad
teleprompter?
Vader, who's Wade's secret identity.
Exactly. Teleprompter? The teleprompter of your mind. So the first film from Cutting the Cord this week is available Warner Archive, $2.99 digital download, the 1975 classic Dog Day Afternoon, which we are talking about because Sidney Lumet, who was one of my directing idols, died last week. And it was a very, very sad day because Sidney was, Sidney Lumet was a wonderful director. He did so many classics. At the LA Film Critics Association Awards a couple of years ago, we gave him our Lifetime Achievement Award. And when you look at the films he did about 40 films. He started with 12 Angry Men in 1957. And then his last film, when he was like 82 years old, he directed Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, with Philip Seymour Hoffman. So he had an amazing career. And what was so amazing about Lumet, and then we'll talk about Dog Day Afternoon, what was so amazing about Lumet was that he had sort of this anti-style, where he was not a flamboyant director. His whole thing was gritty, ground level, character stuff that looked very lived in. And if you want that vibe, the best place to start is Dog Day Afternoon from 1975. Here, Al Pacino and John Cazale play armed gunmen who attempt to rob a Brooklyn Chase Manhattan bank, and they wind up in the middle of a 14-hour siege, taking like 12 hostages. And it's a great film because Al Pacino is confused and conflicted and complex, and he's strong and he's weak, and it's a great performance before he basically turned in all of that and became just flamboyantly insufferable, which is sort of what he is now.
This is some of the best old Pacino that there is.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I like Godfather's great, but this is better old Pacino for me.
Because I don't love him when he does it now, but back
Right.
then I loved it when he was so in his head,
Yeah, yeah.
and he was so conflicted, and he didn't know what to do, and his eyes would sort of bug out, and
Yeah.
I just loved that stuff because it was so interior,
Yeah.
and that's what he was so good at back then. And John Cazale,
Well,
John
yeah.
Cazale is an amazing guy because look, John Cazale. Here's the thing with John Cazale is that
Yeah.
John Cazale starred in 5 films. Every one of them
Knocks out of the
nominated
park.
for Best Picture.
Yeah.
And then he died of cancer.
Yeah, I know. It's
So
really
literally every film this guy was in,
Yeah.
Deer Hunter, Dog Day
Yep.
Afternoon, Godfather, classic.
bad. Yeah.
And then he nominated for Best Picture,
Yeah.
and then he died of cancer.
It's
And the thing with
crazy.
Cazale is that all the people from his era, they idolized him.
Yeah.
He had
Wasn't he dating
Meryl Streep.
Meryl Streep,
He
yeah.
was dating
I
Meryl
mean,
Streep,
It's crazy.
and there's a great documentary on him actually called.
I saw it, yeah.
I believe it's called "It Could Have Been You."
I know that you did it.
I know that you did it.
I know
something
that
like
you
that.
did.
So
Something
it's-
like that, yeah. I flipped
it's a
it
good-
on and I was like,
I know it was you.
yeah. I mean,
And that's the
it's-
documentary. It's
yeah.
great. But when it comes to Dog Day Afternoon and Sidney Lumet, the way he moves the camera, the lack of a score, the sense of place, the hot atmosphere of that bank that slowly gets more and more. The atmosphere just builds and builds and gets thicker
talk
and
about
thicker.
tension, yeah.
And tension. And also it became, for the time, it became a bit of a media satire, because what happens is after the siege begins, the media comes, the crowds come, and then this guy, played by Pacino, who's a Vietnam vet, he becomes sort of this cause celeb on the news. And again, this is 1975.
Yeah, right.
So this is before reality TV and paparazzi, whatever, so before all that stuff.
Yeah.
So the idea that this guy would become a media sensation during the 14 hours of the siege was a bit of a unique thing.
Yeah.
And it's just a great film. I absolutely implore you to, look, if you don't stream it, that's fine. Rent it, buy it.
So it's
Whatever
only
you can do with it.
$2.99.
But it's $2.99 if you want to download it.
That's great.
Stream it. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. So Dog Day Afternoon is my first pick. Alex.
Amazing. That is a great pick.
Well, thank you.
As it's
Alex,
worth.
what is your first pick?
So my pick is a little eclectic. I stumbled upon this actually when I had sort of started making the shift to getting into directing, and I was like, I need to consume more information about filmmaking, and I found on Netflix, was wandering through the Netflix library and found this documentary called Tales from the Script. And it's a documentary, so be prepared to sit and watch people talk. But it's a documentary that covers writers and writer-directors, which is why I found it very informative to me, but all about people's experiences writing professionally in Hollywood. And, Frank Darabont is in it, and a bunch of huge writers and some big writer-directors. And it, to me, helped just explain how weird this whole business is. I mean, that's the thing I got out of the most is so much weird stuff happens in this business, and the movies that you see on the screen where it says written by and a person's name, that doesn't really matter. I mean, usually it's not. One of the people that they interviewed is the lady who wrote Blood Rain, the movie, and she was like, that movie is not the movie I wrote. I got a paycheck.
Well, Guinevere Turner, who's that writer, has some funny stories about working with Uwe Boll, who is like legendarily the world's worst director.
Yeah,
you know?
And that, to me, that is the stuff where you go, it's such a big... Hollywood is so incestuous, and the process of getting a movie made is so glacial. It's like, the fact that anything gets made and get put out every weekend blows my mind. And it's really great. So if you are interested in filmmaking, it's a really great step into understanding what it awaits you in the world of Hollywood.
Well, Paul Schrader says something interesting in the movie, which is that he says write movies if you must.
Yeah.
Because you have to.
Yeah.
Because you're going to put up with so much.
Oh, yeah.
And be shot down so many times.
Yeah.
And have your heart broken so many times and put in so much work for no money.
Yeah.
That do it if you must.
Yeah, that for me, when I first moved to LA, my first acting coach is a guy named Dennis Berkeley, who's an old character actor. If you look him up you'll be like, that guy from everything? And the first day I sat in the class and he said, if anybody in this room can be mildly happy doing anything else as a profession, go and do that right now. Because unless this is the only thing you can do to be happy in your life, you shouldn't be pursuing this. And it's true. And he was like, look, there's 20 people in this room. We'll be lucky if one of the people in this room gets to do this for a living. And he was like, and it'll be maybe a 0.5% chance that any of these people or any of you, because I was sitting in the class, become superstars. I mean, that's the nature of the game. And
what's interesting too, and before we move on to the next one, is that they also get into straight to DVD or straight to video writers too.
Yeah, yeah.
So here are guys who put up with all of that and more,
and it goes straight to DVD.
And it's like Dinotopoulos.
Yeah.
And it goes straight to DVD.
Yeah. Well, there was the guy who was talking about how he's got 15 movies made, and he literally went to a writers therapist group because he was so mad that that his movies were going straight to like Cinemax. And then in the writers group, like it was literally like counseling for writers. He said, I finally left and was like, I need to shut up because everybody in the place was like, I've never sold a script. I just want a movie to be made. I just want to be able to see my words on the screen. And it's like he stood up and was like, I'm an asshole. What am I doing? I've sold like 15 scripts and I can watch every single one of them. But It's that thing of,
'Cause
are you happy or are you happy, you know?
Because movies are a director's medium, and the writers are the bottom of the rung. I mean, really, movies right now are almost a studio executive's medium.
Yeah, no doubt.
Because they decide what, at least in America, they decide what crap gets made.
Yeah, totally.
You know,
there's so many gatekeepers now, it's not even funny.
You know, that's why you get the American films you're getting nowadays, especially during the first quarter of the year, which, you know,
Well,
is the
but
worst.
it's tough when you go, somebody's got to say yes to, you know, 175 million for, you know, Transformers, whatever, 7 or whatever.
The thing is that they don't, but they do because it's safe.
Well, that's that's the
they
thing.
They figure, I'll say yes to this.
Right, yeah.
Because it's such a safe bet that if for some reason it tanks, no one's going to blame me
Yeah.
for greenlighting such a safe bet.
Well, that's the other thing is it's like, you know, people get fired. That's the thing. It's like you choose to say, yeah, that sounds like a good script, and then it doesn't do well. You get fired. Like, that's what happens. That, I think, is what really needs to change. It should go, ooh, bad choice. Or, hey, great choice. The audience didn't want to see it. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know what the public at large wants to see. And it's like, that's okay, because nobody knows. You know what I mean?
Right, because the idea, and then we'll move on, but the idea is not to make a good movie. The idea is to make a movie that opens well, so that the corporations that own these studios can then report their quarterly earnings, and their stockholders are happy.
Yeah.
What that has to do with creativity and movie making, no idea.
No
Probably nothing.
Probably.
Probably nothing. So that's Tales from the Script, which is on Netflix. My next one is also from Sidney Lumet, who again died last week and was my idol. So I'm doing 2 from Lumet, whether you like it or not, Alex. All
Dude,
back from Big Nation.
I'm in. Do it.
Okay, good.
Do 2.
That rant sort of relates to this next one.
What? I love this movie, and I can take it some more. Network! One of my all-time favorite films from 1976. Now, in the film, Peter Finch, who won a posthumous Oscar, he plays Howard Beale. Howard Beale is the once mighty anchor of the UBS Evening News. And now that his ratings have fallen, Howard Beale gets fired, and he goes on the air and says, my last day is in 2 weeks, and on my final show, I'm going to kill myself. And it is, you know, I showed this film recently to someone who had never seen it, and they're much younger than I am, and it is very hard to convey to them how prescient, I don't know, I'll say what I want, how prescient this film was. In 1976, there weren't 4 networks. There was no cable. There was no reality TV. You didn't put real people on television.
Right.
You know, but Patty Chayefsky, who won Oscar nominated, won an Oscar for this unbelievable script, he was able to predict what was going to happen in media for the next 40 years. When you look at Howard Beale, who slowly, you know, implodes on air over the course of a number of days, you know, really he's Glenn Beck. He's Keith Olbermann. He's these guys, these sort of blowhardy guys who go on there and they just slowly implode on the air. That's what this guy was. And the idea that Chayefsky could just, the guy just had first of all, so that's the reason why it's hard for younger people to really understand the subtext of it.
Yeah.
Well, only because what they talk about in the film is so commonplace now.
Right.
But in 1976, it was like science fiction.
Right.
But what's amazing about the film is that it holds up anyway.
Yeah.
Just as a great film. You know, Ned Beatty talking about how, you know, there is no America. There's no democracy. It's just Exxon and AT&T. It's just corporations. That's it.
Amazing.
And, you know, nowadays it's hard for younger folks to remember, but, you know, when Robert Duvall says, you know, historically news divisions were expected to lose money.
Right.
And Robert Duvall says, here's Howard Beale, who's willing to read the news and collapse on camera. Let's make money off of him. News can actually make us money.
Yeah.
And that actually wound up coming maybe 5-10 years before the real concept that a network's news division doesn't have to be a loss, a loss leader for the network. The news division should make money. So once the news division was seen as by these corporations, who buy these networks, as an avenue to make money, then it didn't become about news anymore. It didn't become about news gathering, the purity of news gathering. And the fact that this film was able to presage, I like that word.
Presage.
J-Mac liked presage. Presage that by like 10 years is just another reason why this film is unbelievably timeless and amazing. It's a great film. It's Faye Dunaway, Beatrice Straight, both won Oscars for it.
I will say I am one of those semi-younger people who will have to be exposed to this movie because I haven't seen it.
It is. Whoa, what?
List of shame.
Dennis, fighting words.
It's squarely on my list of shame.
I'm telling you, the film is absolutely magnificent. It's one of my favorite films of all time. It is just bleak and dark. And Chayefsky, who was a heavyweight,
Yeah.
the guy was a heavyweight. He also wrote another terrific film, Oscar nominated, called The Hospital, which I don't think was as good as this one, Network, which was George C. Scott. But it's another one of those scathing films that takes a look at the underbelly of society and where society is going. He was able to sort of push us into looking at where the culture's going. And the guy was just amazing. So, but Network, which is Sidney Lumet, William Holden is great in it. It is available on Amazon, $2.99 rental to stream.
Perfect.
And I cannot recommend it highly enough.
Amazing. I love it. Well, we actually talked about my second movie earlier when asking about my favorite movies, which is the Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, Martin short comedy, Three Amigos, which I've actually shown people this movie and they've not kind of gotten it. So I can get that maybe it's not for everybody. I like to say that it's my favorite of that sort of 80s genre with the three people who were ruling those types of movies for me all together in one, in just the wackiest exchange of a movie ever. It basically takes place, I think it's actually a period piece. It takes place in like the 50s or something like that. In the sort of studio system, the old studio system in Hollywood where these three actors, played by Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, and Martin Short, play the Three Amigos, which are horrible, stereotypical Mexican gunslingers. Three white guys dressing up as Mexican gunslingers. And they get fired from the studios. They then get a telegram inviting them to the town of Santa Poco and want them to save them from El Guapo, this horrible guy who comes down from the mountain and shoots things and all just horrible treachery. They think it's an invitation to do a small show. They have just been fired, so they decide to go. They steal their costumes, head down to Santa Poco, and hilarity ensues.
Not just hilarity. There's a plethora of laughs.
Hey,
plethora, huh?
Very nice.
Thank you for your for all you Three Amigos fans.
Oh, dude, Three Amigos is one of the highest quoted movies that there is for me. And not only that, I was surprised to find out many years ago that Randy Newman co-wrote the screenplay. Now, we talked about this before because it was, I mean, this is obviously an old Saturday Night Live group. Lorne Michaels co-wrote it and executive produced it. John Landis directed. Steve Martin co-wrote it with Lorne Michaels and Randy Newman. Now, I know there are some songs, you know, the Singing Bush.
That's right. That's Randy
Newman's.
Newman's.
That is Randy Newman's voice, which is amazing. And to me, I mean, this is just one of the funniest movies that came out of the 80s. And there are other great movies that came out of the 80s, but for me, this movie takes the cake.
Hey!